All right, so we're on page 250. We're starting Parsha's Vayigash. And 250. Okay. So just to sum up the, just pull that door closed over there, Tyler. Thanks. To page 250. So what happened at the end of Miketz is the brothers go home and they planted the goblet of fire in the, yeah, there you go. They planted the goblet in Binyamin's bag. And at that point, they come back to you. They once they find that they were stopped at an inn, and they find the goblet in Binyamin's bag. And at that point, Menashe, who had gone with the brothers, so he was Yosef's go-between. And when they find the what do you call it? They get there to the it's on page 246. So they find out that what do you call it? They open it up, and they find it in Binyamin's what do you call it? Now, if you look at page 248, there's something very fascinating. It says on the page when they find the goblet, it says Vayikru simlosam. They rend their garments because they know they're in trouble. So who the agent for Yosef was Menashe. That was Menashe who had gone. Yosef's son Menashe. He was the go-between. Yosef and them. He was the interpreter. He was the agent that Yosef used. And what's remarkable is that later in the Torah, we find 2.5 tribes that decided to stay on the other side of the Jordan River. Right, when they go into Eretz Yisrael, there's Ruvain, Gad, and Chatzi Shevet Menashe, half of Menashe. The commentaries say, why was Menashe's tribe split in half? That half went over there and half stayed in Eretz Yisrael? Because he was the cause of them tearing their garments over here. Because he's the one who planted the goblet, and he's the one who caught them, and it's all part of Yosef's plan. But the rule is, in life, nothing goes unpaid. Everything there's going to be payback for everything. You caused them to rend their garments, to tear their garments. Therefore, your tribe eventually is going to be torn in half as well. That's how far the Hashem's justice is carried out. So now they come back to Egypt, and Yehuda what Yehuda says to Yosef, all right, I guess we're all in trouble. We're all slaves. You got us all now. And Yosef, the last word Yosef says to Yehuda is, no, Chalila, I don't want all of you. The one who was caught, he's the one who is going to be my slave, which is Binyamin. And the rest of you could go home. At that point starts Vayigash. Vayigash, I love Yehuda. Yehuda approaches Yosef. And Yehuda is not in a good mood at this point. Now, something has triggered Yehuda off. And first of all, he had taken responsibility for Binyamin, that we spoke about. Yehuda has taken responsibility for Binyamin. He promised Yaakov Avinu is going to bring Binyamin back. But more than that, Yehuda understands something funny is happening here. All along, the brothers thought that the aggravation that they have, that their money is in the thing, and they come back and this guy accuses them of being spies, all the aggravation they've been going through, they all along were convinced that this was some sort of retribution for the sale of Yosef. All of a sudden, Binyamin, who had nothing to do with the sale of Yosef, Binyamin is the one who's now being blamed for everything. At that point, they realize, is that door open over there? At that point, they realize that it's trumped up charges, and Yehuda says, "Okay, let's enough with the shticking around over here. Up until this point, so I could deal with it because I figured, Hakadosh Baruch Hu was fine. Now it's all you. It's this whoever this Egyptian ruler is obviously trying to frame us. He's trying to lay one on us over here. So at that point, Yehuda's had about enough. So Vayigash elav Yehuda vayomer bi'adoni. Bi'adoni is what we would call in English, with all due respect. And I told you, when anybody ever says to you, with all due respect, that means you're about to be insulted. With all due respect, so you're incompetent. With all due respect, right? So he says, Bi'adoni. Yedaber na'avdecha dover boznei adoni. Let me speak in your ear. V'al yichar apcha be'avdecha, ki chamocha kifaro. So Rashi says, you are like Paro. Rashi says, two perush here. He says, you're important to me like Paro. And number two, if you give me a hard time, I'm going to kill you just like I killed Paro, right? So Yehuda is taking the lead over here. And he goes through the whole story. Now Yehuda goes into a whole what's it called, a soliloquy? Is that what it's called when you do a lot of talking, or is that just called marriage? Monologue. Right? He goes, a monologue, that's the word I'm looking for. There's a whole monologue over here. The whole monologue. He goes through the whole monologue all the way up to, it repeats the whole story. You told us this, and we said this, and you said this, and we said that. You asked about our father. He goes on and on. The Medrash says Yosef was saying, boy, this guy talks a lot. He's giving a whole talk over here. So the Ramban says, why did Yehuda go into this whole monologue over here? To try to tug at Yosef's heartstrings a little bit by telling him how, to soften him up. And the Medrash even says that there were other officials there who were saying to Yosef, come on, yeah, go easy on them, will you? Go easy. Yosef was under a lot of pressure over here. So Yehuda's going on and on and on. He's talking. Okay. So I told guys once, when you get married, and by the way, when I tell you about marriage, by the way, the only reason I'm telling you about marriage is because one day the likelihood is you are going to be getting married. Right? The statistics show that people do get married, right? And you got to know how to deal with marriage. So one of the most important things in marriage is you got to respect your wife. And the most basic form of respect is, close that door over there, the most basic form of respect for any person, the most basic form is you don't interrupt when they're talking. When your wife is talking, you don't interrupt. No matter how, even if you're having an argument, don't interrupt. You can laugh, but you can't interrupt, right? And I said it's not hard. It's not hard. Maybe just lock it. It's not hard. If you hear her voice, don't talk. That's all. When you hear her voice, don't talk. Just wait till she's finished talking. So I once told this to a group of young guys who were just recently married. I was giving a talk on marriage. I was talking about this, don't interrupt your wife. So one of the guys comes over to me. He's married about 3-4 months. Comes over to me after. He's got kind of a dazed look on his face. He goes, Rabbi, when my wife gets started, she could really go on for a while. So I laughed. I said, that's just too bad, so could you. Right? And since you married her, you're going to have to listen patiently and quietly. And you got to not only listen patiently and quietly, you have to even nod your head and pretend you're interested. That's right. Yeah, you'll have to look enchanted and fascinated. Right? That's it. I just read a story of Shmuel Auerbach that's all. A guy, first year married, a guy got married. In a couple of months, I guess this guy was a serious talk. A couple of months after his marriage, he came to complain. He said, my wife, she talks a lot. And not only she talks a lot, but she expects me, I got to tell her every little detail when I come home. She asks every little detail. What did I do? Where I was? Every little detail. It's wearing me out. And he says, what's wrong with you? And he said, Rabbi Shmuel, I said, what's wrong? I don't know, what's the matter with you? She's a woman. What's your problem? What did you expect? We're all in the same boat. What did you want over it? So Yehuda goes into this whole, what he calls, Yosef, what's with the whole monologue over here? He's trying to soften Yosef up. Okay, now, take a look. He says, you asked if we have a father or a brother. And we told you that we have a father, and he remains alone. He remains alone. His father loves this son. Now, I want you to take a look at Pasuk 22. I'm going to tell you one. You're gonna fall off your chairs for this one. Okay? Vanomer al Adoni. It's a Pasuk Chavav. It's a 6th line from the top. Vanomer al Adoni. Lo yuchal anar lazov esaviv ve'ozav esaviv v'meis. The youth cannot leave his father. If he leaves his father, he'll die. Ve'ozav esaviv v'meis. If he leaves his father, he'll die. So the Yaakov had been hesitant to save Binyamin because it says a satan is mekatreg b'shas sakana. In time of danger, there's a special prosecution from the satan. A person that puts himself in a place of where it's dangerous, so he actually activates some sort of extra danger of himself. In a dangerous situation, a person has more of a chance. In other words, the divine decree on a person is kind of camouflaged within natural law. In natural law, when, for example, a soldier at the front is in a more dangerous situation, because by nature it looks more dangerous, but there's actually a divine prosecution. A soldier is where bullets are flying. It's a more dangerous situation. So Binyamin, if he travels, it's going to be more dangerous for him. So I saw somebody, the Pasuk, when Yaakov Avinu or Moshe Rabbeinu, they both give brachas. I think Yaakov Avinu, when he gave the bracha to Binyamin, do you remember what the bracha was? Take a look at Parsha Vayigash. It's the next week's Parsha. The bracha to Binyamin, what kind of animal he compares him to. Does anybody remember? Page 282. Look at page 282, 4 lines from the bottom. Binyamin ze'ev yitraf. 4 lines. Binyamin is a wolf that tears up the prey. So I saw the Chida quotes a Rishon. It said, you know what they were worried about Binyamin? Binyamin actually turned into a wolf. When Binyamin would leave home, he would turn into a wolf.
So that's the myth of werewolves?
You know what? That's the first thing that crossed my mind, because a lot of the stuff in the Goyish world comes straight out of here. A lot of the sayings and expressions, pull the wool over his eyes, that's from Esav, that's from Yaakov with the wool with Yitzchak. The writing on the wall is straight out of the book of Daniel. Witchcraft, sorcery, straight out of the Gemara. Not only that, do you know that the Gemara says one of the ways to ward off spells in witchcraft is by staying connected to water? Isn't that interesting? The Wizard of Oz, how'd they dissolve her? Water. Why water? Why didn't you put marshmallow fluff on her? Why water? So I assume there was some off the derech yeshiva guy who was writing the script with them, and he remembered the Gemara in Sanhedrin from his yeshiva days, and he wrote the Wizard of Oz or something probably, and he remembered that's why he stuck all that stuff in. And you'll see a lot of the stuff that goes on, even the movie The 10 Commandments. Some of the stuff is, remember, don't tell me you haven't seen the original 10 Commandments, right? With Yul Brenner, the Jew, plays Paro. Right, and Charlton Heston, the anti-Semite, plays Moses. Right, so they have. Remember, in the plague of the firstborn, they have this idol, and Yul Brenner, Pharaoh, places the dead child on the arms of this idol. Okay, so that's a mishmash of several midrashim, where he places where it says that the idol worship of of Molech, was a hollowed out copper idol, and they would heat it up inside. And so the copper became red hot. And then they would lay the child across the arms of the hot idol, and the child, it's painful, and the child would die that way. There was the offering. So they got that mished up in the movie over there. A lot of these things. So when witchcraft comes straight out of Judaism, even Sinbad. Right, Sinbad sails the 7 seas, right, and he's got all sorts of, the Gemara and Baba Basra, Rabbi Barbachana, who sees all these sea creatures and everything else. I'm convinced it came out of that. And the werewolf, where would they come up with a werewolf? Why a werewolf? Why not a were-giraffe? Why a werewolf? Why dafka a werewolf? Why not a were-giraffe or a were-llama? Right? Why a werewolf? Where'd that come from, all this stuff? All these things. So he says Binyamin actually turned into a wolf. And the only way he could avoid when that would happen, apparently, again, this is very strange, but he had a doctor on location by Yaakov Avinu who could keep him, who had the cure for it. So Yehuda is saying, we can't bring him down here. We told you we can't bring him down, because we bring him down here and he turns into a wolf, so somebody's going to shoot him on the way. If a wolf is running around wild, somebody may shoot the wolf. So that was the argument. I don't know what the source for it is for the Rishon. It's a Rishon who's saying it, Rabbeinu Ephraim. It could be it's a Kabbalist. I have no idea where he gets it from. I know, I just saw it recently. And I was like, what? Never heard that before. That's the what he called. That's what happens with Peter. Okay. So he goes through this whole story, and eventually he says at the bottom of the page, Ve'ata. Kivoi el b'avdechavi, when I come to my your servant, my father, v'hanari nenu itanu, 2 lines from the bottom, v'nafsho kshura b'nafsho, their souls are joined together. V'haya kiroso ki eina nar, when he sees that the nar is not with us, v'meis, he'll die. V'horidu avodecha esevas avdechavi b'gon shola. So the commentaries say, Yosef is like, well, why should he die? You go home and tell him that he's by me. Why should he die? So the Mefarshim say, Yehuda was saying to Yosef, Yaakov sent Binyamin with me. When we come back, I'm not going to get a chance to explain to him. As soon as I come in and he sees Binyamin is not with me, he's going to die. That's the plain meaning. The plain meaning, he's just going to die from the fact that he sees Binyamin. I'm never going to have a chance to explain it. But I saw a very interesting comment. Yaakov Avinu Yaakov Avinu had some sort of tradition. He knew somehow that if any of his sons die in his lifetime, then he's going to spend at least some time in Gehenna. That is what it says in Chazal. He also knew that because Rachel caused him to stay longer by Lavan, that means he was in servitude to Lavan because he had to wait for Rachel. How did Rachel cause it? Because she gave the signs to Leah. So she was an indirect cause of Yaakov having to stay longer than he really wanted to. He had to spend another 7 years. So Yaakov had a sense that Rachel's children will become servants. They'll become slaves. So he wasn't that upset that Yosef, he at a certain level, you follow, she made him a slave for an extra 7 years to Lavan, and therefore he assumed her children, because Hashem works Mida Keneged, they're one way or another, they're going to end up slaves also. So when Yosef didn't come home, he was convinced at some level that Yosef is a slave right now. So he's okay. So far he's okay. He could avoid Gehenna as long as Yosef's a slave and Yosef's not dead. But now, if Binyamin is there, and Binyamin's taken as a slave, if Yehuda would tell Binyamin that Yaakov, that Binyamin was taken as a slave to Yosef, to this Egyptian ruler, well then this decree on Rachel's children is now being fulfilled by Binyamin. Well, what does that mean about Yosef? That means Yosef's dead. At that point, Yaakov's going to die of grief because he's going to realize that he himself now is going to have to experience Gehenna. And that's why Yehuda is saying to Yosef, he's saying to Yosef that I can't leave Binyamin here because if Binyamin is left here, their father's not going to survive the blow. That's what Rabbi Yonasan Eibshit says at a deeper level. Okay? And Yehuda then says to Yosef, I'll take his place. I'm better in all ways than him. I'm stronger. I could serve you better. I could be a warrior. That's how it ends. Okay. Now Yosef comes to one of the most dramatic moments of the Torah. Page 252. V'lo yachal Yosef le'yisapek l'chol hanitzavim olav. Yosef could not hold back anymore. Now you're talking about the man who is the most willpower in holding back. If he couldn't hold back, then it must have been really difficult to hold back at this point. And he hears Yehuda pleading for his son. So Yosef is warmed up now. So Yosef couldn't hold back. Vayikra hotziu kol ish me'alai. Get everybody out. V'lo amari shito b'izvara Yosef elachav. Nobody was there when Yosef revealed himself to his brothers. I mean, Yosef is the man of absolute control. And Yosef can't control himself at this point. That means he's at the point, he cannot hold back anymore. So he says, get everybody out of here. All the officials, I remember he's the royal king, you know, these guys are stalking, you got the royal court there. He says, get everybody out of here. So the Medrash says Yosef did something, Yosef endangered his life at this point. How does he endanger his life? I mean, you got 10 guys here, none of them are in a very good mood. The Medrash says they demonstrated their strength. And Yosef is going to leave himself alone with these guys. All his security men. That means, I'm sure he had security guys there, right? Every government official has. You remember I told you Bill Clinton came to Israel. When Bill Clinton came to Israel, so the Israelis offered to provide security for him. The Secret Service, the Israeli equivalent of Secret Service. And the Americans said, no, we'll take care of it ourselves. Americans said, we'll take care of the president. So they were staying in the King David Hotel. So Bill Clinton was in the hotel. And there were a lot of Israelis there who wanted to meet the president. And, you know, this American Secret Service there, and he was in a room, and they're holding the people out of the room, the American Secret Service guys. There was a side door, which apparently they didn't notice. But some of the Israelis noticed it. So they managed to open the door, and this crowd of Israelis, a bunch of falafel-eating Israelis came in, crowding around Bill Clinton. He was separated from his Secret Service guys for about 10 minutes. The crowd was so thick, which is an absolute calamity. He's alone with Israelis, you know, eating sunflower seeds, saying "Yalla bye," you know, and trying to get his autograph. There he is, and the Secret Service guys couldn't reach him. You know, there's trina all over the place. You know, and they could with some bisley, and they couldn't reach him. right? Which is considered a calamity. We told you we'll watch them for you. That's what Yosef is doing over here. Yosef says everybody out. Now he's going to leave himself alone with these guys who are unhappy with him. Why? And the Medrash says he was in danger. He was in danger. He didn't know if they were going to kill him or not. It's a 10-on-1. Why? Because he didn't want his brothers to be embarrassed. Because now he's going to reveal himself. He's going to reveal that he was sold. That could be embarrassing. He'll say, "Hi, Ray, I'd like you to meet my brothers who sold me." It could be a bit awkward, right? Yeah, I'd like you to meet, this is my brother. This is my brother Ruvain. Well, he actually just threw me into a pit of snakes. And this is my brother Shimon. He wanted to kill me. This is my brother Levi. He was also in on it. This is Yehuda who said to sell me, right? Oh, nice to meet you, fellas, right? So Yosef wants everybody out because it could be embarrassing. Vayiten es kolo bivchi, starts crying. Vayishmu mishraim vayishma beis paro. Yosef starts crying. So there are different opinions of how Paro heard about it. Paro's in a different bed. There's one opinion that says he was crying so loud it penetrated Paro's walls. How do you like that? You're talking about a very emotional moment. The plain meaning is he cried, somebody outside heard him crying, they passed the word along. Just keep Pasuk Beis in mind. Then comes the one I wanted to get to. Vayomer Yosef Alachav, Ani Yosef, Ha'od Avichai, I'm Yosef, is my father still alive? And picture the brothers at this moment. Picture the brothers at this moment. Yeah, exactly. You're the last thing you're expecting, and all of a sudden he says, "I'm Yosef." Right. Oh, what can you say? Is my father still alive? V'lo yochlu echlav la'anos oso. His brothers couldn't respond ki nivhalu miponov. Because they were. How does Artsco translate it? They were disconcerted. I would have translated as they were panic stricken in front of him. They were mortified. Mipanov. So there's a medrash here that I want to tell you, and this is a very powerful medrash, and it's an interesting shot from the baseline. You may have heard this, but it's something that is very penetrating. The medrash says on this pasuk, "Oy lanu miyom hadin." I've told you in the past, the word oi is really a Hebrew word. Oi is a word. It's not just something, your grandpa, when he sat down in a chair, oi vey, and he gave a krechts, right? It actually comes from a pasuk in Nach, because the pasuk says, Lemi oi, who groans oi, Lemi avoy, and who wails avoy. That's why we say oi vey, but it really comes from the word oi and avoy. Oy vey, right? Who groans oy and who wails avoy? The pasuk goes on to say, Lama achrin aliyayin, people who spend a long time drinking. Then you wake up the next morning, oy vey, oy, somebody turn off the lights. Somebody says good morning to you, not so loud. And your head is ringing. And in Norway they call it, you got a katzenjammer, right? A katzenjammer is what we call a hangover, right? And your head is throbbing, and chances are you got into a fight in the bar and you got lumps and you're bruised and battered. Who gets that? People who drink a lot. That's a pasuk. That's a pasuk in Mishli. Lemi oy, lemi avoy. It's a pasuk from Shlomo HaMelech. The Medrash says, Oy lanu miyom hadin. Woe to us on the day of judgment. Oy lanu miyom hatochecha. Woe to us on the day of rebuke. That means that big day in the future. If Yosef's brothers couldn't respond to his rebuke, and he's only a king of flesh and blood, how are we going to respond to the rebuke of the Ribono Shel Olam? They were speechless. Nothing to say to the rebuke of a king of flesh and blood. How are we going to, we think a guy's going to die after Me'av Esrim, and you go up there, Hashem will say this and I'll say that. He'll say this and I'll say that, and then we'll be okay. Right? Which is superficial. What's going to happen after Me'av Esrim is a person's going to go up, and a person is going to be hit with a blast of ultimate truth. And at that point, the person is there. What are you going to say? You're having truth put in your face, as the expression goes. And there's going to be very little room for, but the reason okay. That's what the Medrash says. That we're going to lose our voice when we get up to show. Listen, it works in the good also, remember, because you're going to be shown all the good things you did too. And everybody's going to be standing, the heavenly hosts are going to be giving you an ovation. Wow, he put on tefillin. Clap, 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 clap. You know, and they give a, wow, he helped a little old lady. He gave up his seat on the bus for a little old lady. Nobody knew. And clap, 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 clap. I can take a bow over there. And they say, oh, I came late to davening again. Boo, hiss, you know, woo, woo. You know, oh, there's some Lashon Hara over there. Boo. Oh, he was looking at the computer at the wrong thing. Ooh. Right? I think everything's on record. Everything's up. Everything's recorded. But there's one big question. The Medrash says if they couldn't respond to Yosef's rebuke, how will we respond to Hashem's rebuke? The famous question of the Beis HaLevi. Where was the rebuke over here? What was the rebuke? He said, I'm Yosef. Is my father still alive? Where's the rebuke? He just identified himself. Why is he asking if his father's alive? Because they lied to him earlier when they said, well, he had one extra brother who he died. And Yosef knew very much that he did die. To quote Mark Twain, they once said that Mark Twain had died, and Mark Twain sent out a message. He said, the rumors of my demise are greatly exaggerated. And so Yosef knows when they're telling Yosef that Yosef died, Yosef knows very much that he hasn't died. So they've lied about him. So when they said their father's alive, his first concern is, well, is he alive or not? I need Yosef, is my father alive, or were you lying about that also? Okay, but where's the rebuke? Where's the rebuke? You know where the rebuke is? The worst rebuke possible. Yosef says to him, I'm Yosef. And is my father still alive here? You're singing me the song and dance about how he won't survive the blow. If Binyamin doesn't come back, he won't survive the blow. What, all of a sudden you're concerned? You're so concerned? How come you weren't concerned about that 22 years ago when you sold me? That you weren't worried about. All of a sudden now you're worried about it? That's the rebuke. The worst rebuke in life is when you get caught in a self-contradiction. That's the worst rebuke. Guy comes up after 100, how come you didn't give tzedakah? Oh, listen, things were tough. Yeah, I noticed you ate at some pretty fancy restaurants. Yeah, you didn't think twice about buying tickets for the ball game. And you couldn't give a guy some money? That you're caught in your own self-contradiction. How come you didn't buy tefillin? You know, $1,200 for little black boxes, you know. Oh, you had another little black box that you paid $1,200 for. They had no problem with. Right? What happened over there? That self-contradiction is the ultimate rebuke. Didn't your parents ever nail you on one of those? Didn't your parents ever get you on that? Your dad asked you to mow the lawn? Oh, I really don't have energy. And then the phone rings. Your friends need you to play. Need a 10th man for a basketball game. And you're getting your gym shorts. Your friends, oh, you didn't have energy. You never got nailed like that, did your parents? Parents are masters of that. Well, my dad was good at that. My dad he got me on that all the time. Oh, they got me on, left, right, and center. Right? That's the worst one. That's the worst. All of a sudden, I can't get up for a minyan. All of a sudden, your friends call you. They want to go. Tomorrow morning, we're going on a road trip. So you're up at 6:30. 6:30? You're up? I thought you're too tired for Shachris in the morning. All of a sudden, you're up fresh as a daisy, right? That was a good one, right? They were always good at that. Oh, my father was a master at that. Nailed me left, right, and center. Right, on a regular basis. You know, that's the one. That's the one that hurts. Okay, that's first of all. That's what the pshat in the matter. Yosef is saying to him, "I'm Yosef. I'm alive." But that feeling, besides just the plain feeling of wow. I mean, let's say that he hadn't rebuked them. Let's say he would have just said, "I'm Yosef." I mean, what would their reaction be? What would your reaction be? Oh, hi. How's it going? What's been happening for the last 22 years since we sold you? How do you even begin over here? Okay, more. There's a famous line from the Chafetz Chaim. Now listen to this. This is, you know what I compare it to? You ever been at one of those movies? One of those what are they called? Those intrigue movies, spy movies, where it's very confusing, and you don't find out on the last page till the last scene. The good guy was really a bad guy. The bad guy was worse, and the third guy was really with the good guys all along, but he didn't know it until and he himself didn't know it. And the whole thing clears up on the last page. It's like an Agatha Christie novel, right? Yeah, you know, all of a sudden on the last, you're clueless till the last. All of a sudden everything falls into place. The brothers, and in the movies, there's always that one guy when you walk out into the parking lot. There's always one guy. You hear two guys talking. You go, Oh, really? Oh, you mean he was with them all? Oh, I thought he was a... No, he was a bad... Oh. That was me. I could never follow it. I had a friend who from the beginning, I used to go to a movie, a friend of mine from the beginning, oh, he's going to get killed, he's a bad guy, he's really a good guy, and he was always right. And after the movie, he had explained to me what I just saw. He had explained to me the whole, and I'm like, you mean Snape was really a good guy? You know, one of those things, one of those jobs. So Yosef and the brothers, there's a lot of confusion over here. These guys are confused. The guy is a bad guy. He's treating us well, but now he's framing us. He was a, he's what where, you know, what's that? All of a sudden he says, I'm Yosef. Yeah, I mean, The Chafetz Chaim says, with 2 words, Ani Yosef, everything became clear. Everything became clear. Right? Ani Yosef. But what? And it happens in Gemara all the time, by the way. You learn the piece of Gemara and Rashi, and you think you know it. Then you hear Tosos. And we learn Tosos, then you get a Marsha. And then, you can't say everything's getting clearer. So Yosef, they're in a fog right now. And there's all of a sudden there's a burst of clarity. Says the Chafetz Chaim, everybody wonders about life. Why did this happen? Why did I lose money? How come that happened? Why did this guy end up getting mad? Why did he chas v'shalom that happen? Why? We got a lot of whys. We're full of whys. How did that happen? Why didn't it work out over there? Why? How did I end up? Why? And then in the future, they're going to hear 2 words, Ani Hashem. I am Hashem. A burst of clarity. And it's always going to go, and everything clears up. If they could be cleared up with 2 words from a Yosef, so imagine the clarity that we're going to get when it's 2 words from the Ribono Shel Olam. Then we'll get all the clarity on everything. And every single thing that happened in our life and everything that happened in the entire history of the world and why every blade of grass grew where it did and why every bus didn't arrive at the bus stop, that's all going to get clarity on that in the Olam Hamas. Every single thing that ever happened to everybody in history, that's the clarity that we're going to get in the Olam Hamas. That's what, and in a moment, it's going to be a flash. We think that it's going to, however it works over there, because it's incomprehensible to us. But that's the lesson. Now, I saw an unbelievable shot. The Shem Shmuel says like this. What does the word mipanov mean? Nivhalu mipanov. They were frightened before him, right? Nivhalu mipanov. They're frightened in front of him. But what does the word mipanov also mean? They were frightened because of his face. Okay? So the plain meaning is nivhalu, you can say, well, he finally took off that mask, that Egyptian headdress, or they're willing to look at it and finally see him, and now they see his face. But I saw it at a much deeper level. There's a pasuk that says, Chochmas Adam Ta'ir Panav. A person's wisdom causes his face to light up. It doesn't have to mean light up, but it could mean, you could see a wise person. You took a look at Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal, he glowed in the dark. He glowed in the dark. Reb Chaim, there was a veritable glow about him. And tzaddikim, big tzaddikim, you see them, that there's almost, you could sense the Shechina with them, the divine presence. Chochmas Adam Ta'ir Panav. Person's wisdom lightens up his face. Yosef, you're going to love this. Yosef was the Chacham. Yosef was on a very high madrega. He was on a higher madrega than Reb Chaim Kanievsky. He had the glow, but he knew how to turn it off also. And when he revealed himself to the brothers, he turned it on. You ever have a flashlight turned on in your face? So you're kind of shocked. That's not what it means. What does it really mean? Now they took a look at him. They don't see an Egyptian ruler over here. What do they see? They see Yosef. And now they see what Yosef really is. Instead of looking at him with jealousy and hatred, they see what Yosef really is. And now they realize, this is who we sold. This is who we sold. Remember you were in high school? There's certain kids that you beat up or you Melvin or whatever you did to these kids. right? There's certain kids who are off limits. He's too much of a tzaddik. We're not going to mess with that kid, right? That's a kid we don't pick on him, right? He's beyond, he's above that, he's past that. That's what I say. This is who we sold. Now we see ourselves for the truth. Now that all of our biases have been stripped away, now we see what we really did 22 years ago. This is the tzaddik that we sold. That's nivhalu mipanav. When you see his face for what it really is, then you really have, that's when you're really panic stricken. This is who we were picking on 22 years ago. This is who we sold 22 years ago. Okay. So then the Vayomer Yosef alachav geshuna elai Vayigash. Yosef says, please approach me. Vayomer Yosef, Vayomer ani Yosef achichem asher bechartem osi Mitzrayim. I'm Yosef, your brother who you sold to Egypt. Why does he say that? That's not a nice thing to say. I mean, he just identified himself. I'm Yosef who you sold to Egypt. Why is he saying something like that? Why would he want to hurt them now? He's revealed himself for it. Was it payback time? Everything he did up until now, even everything what he did up until now was with no animosity. It was only to manipulate things and move things around so that there's going to be a fulfillment of the dreams and the brothers will end up coming and bowing down to him. So why does he say this? Ani Yosef achichem asher bechartem osi Mitzrayim. Why does he say that? Why did Yosef say that? What's the point of saying that? I'm Yosef who you sold to Egypt. What are you rubbing it in for? Okay, we know. What are we supposed to say to you? Yes, we sold you. We're sorry. What are we supposed to say? Why is he rubbing it in? The answer is he's not rubbing it in. The answer is now, in case you have any doubt about who I am, in case you're not convinced that I'm Yosef, I have one identification that I can make, something that nobody knows about except us, which is what? That you sold me to Mitzrayim. Nobody knows that. Who else knows that? Who knows about that? You were at the sale, and unfortunately I was at the sale, except that I was the item, right? But you sold me to Egypt. Nobody else knows about that. So nobody else, that's the ultimate identification. Ani Yosef, I'm your brother who you sold to Egypt. Oh, this is really him. That reality is sinking in. Now Rashi says a shocker over here. I think I told you this last week. Rashi says, Gishuna Eli, left column of Rashi, 3 lines from the top. Gishuna Eli, approach closer. Get ready for this, Avi. Ra osam nisoging le'ochor. He saw them moving backwards. They were backing away. I mean, when a guy reveals himself after 22 years, they were starting to back off a little bit, like, whoa, what's going to happen now? Omar achshav achay nichlami, my brothers are embarrassed. Kora lehem beloshon raka v'tachanunim. He called them in a soft lashon. He said, I'm Yosef, I'm your brother. V'her lehem shumol, he showed them that he was circumcised. Now, the obvious problem here is twofold. Number one, that's not the most discreet thing to do, number one. Number two, it doesn't help because everybody in Egypt was circumcised. Remember, Yosef decreed on all the Egyptians that they should be circumcised. So what does showing them circumcised mean? Well, how's that going to help? The answer is that Yosef wasn't saying to them that he did, their commentators, he didn't literally show them that he was circumcised. It means he was showing them the entire country circumcised. Ask around where the idea came from. Find out, ask the people, who gave you the idea? You all circumcised. Who gave you this idea? You'll see they're going to tell me the idea came from me. Why would I? I'm the one who brought the idea to the country. That's a form of identification. Where the Egyptians didn't circumcise, nobody is circumcised. Where would they have gotten the idea from? The idea came from me. He showed them that he's circumcised, meaning that he's the one who brought the idea to Mitzrayim. Then he says, "Va'ata alte otzu." Don't be sad. Vayichar beinechem ki mechartem osei, and don't be upset that you sold me. Ki lemicha shlachani elokim lifnechem. Hashem has sent me ahead to provide livelihood for you. Don't be upset. But you'll notice that the word he says, ve'ata, now, don't be upset. We never find that Yosef's brothers are punished. We never find a punishment. They sold their brother, they kidnapped and sold him. We never find a punishment. So I think as Rabbi Chanan Wasserman says, what does the word va'ata indicate? Now, don't be sad. But there will come a time in the future where you will be sad because of it, which is when? The 10 rabbis, Asar Harugei Malchus. The Asara Haruge Malchus, the 10 martyrs that we read about on Tisha B'Av and on Yom Kippur, the Arizal says they were a reincarnation of Yosef's brothers. And in the dirge on Yom Kippur, when we read it on Yom Kippur, I don't think it's in the Tisha B'Av one, in the Yom Kippur version, it's read, if you remember in the Yom Kippur version, it's formulated as a conversation between the Roman emperor and these 10 sages. And what does he say to them? He says, what does it say in your Torah about somebody who kidnaps and sells somebody? So he's liable for the death penalty. So he says, Yosef's brothers, again, it's that poetic license, but he says to them, Yosef's brothers kidnapped and sold him, yet they were never punished. So there have never been 10 sages since then who are as great as you. And therefore, you are now going to be punished for Yosef's brothers having sold him. And then each one of them was tortured to death. That's what we read on Yom Kippur. So when Yosef says, Va'ata, now don't be aggravated. Well, now you're not going to be aggravated. There will be a time later, and the commentaries say there will be a time later in the future where you are going to go through a certain aggravation. And that's Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol, and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, and Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Chinan ben Teradion, and all of those 10 sages who get tortured to death. Now, there's only one thing. Even the 10 sages over there, there are commentaries that say that that event did not take place the way we read it in the Yom Kippur service. It was formulated in the Yom Kippur service in order to kind of tug at our hearts on Yom Kippur. But it did not happen the way it sounds because they didn't live in the same generation. All 10 of them didn't live in the same. It was put together as a conversation, and with the one with the 10, in order to be more, to get us a little bit emotional on Yom Kippur. But that's why it says Ve'ata. And now don't be upset. Now don't be upset. But there will be a time later in history when you will be upset. Okay.